Hello and welcome or welcome back to the Import Export Hub channel, everyone. Bogdan here, your biased host for the next 10 minutes or so. Thanks for pushing the play button, by the way. I hope everybody is doing well, and without begging you to hit those small vanity buttons, allow me to cover United States imports from Vietnam with a focus on the top 20 headings that saw the largest absolute changes in 2024 relative to 2023, both positive and negative. While towards the end of the video, I'll also cover United States imports from Vietnam that had the smallest variability for the 2020-2024 timeframe, with a coefficient of variation as a proxy in finding out Vietnam's competitive advantage, or at least part of it when it comes to its exports towards the United States, but more on this in a couple of minutes. So guys, first things first, in terms of absolute positive changes in 2024, the largest change happened in relation with heading 8471. So I'm talking about automatic data processing machines, who had a $6.5 billion change, by far the largest amount if we consider both the time frame and the top 20 headings. And what is more interesting, if you ask me, is the compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years, who reads 49.75%. On the second spot, we have parts and accessories, heading 8473, who had an yearly change of $4 billion and an overall export value around $6.3 billion, while discs, tapes, and the like ends the podium with a change of $1.5 billion and an overall export value of $1.7 billion. And if we look at the yearly exported values, we see that in 2020 there were just $12.4 million, while a couple of years later the overall value skyrocketed to $1.7 billion. And my guess is that this is mostly a strategic move done by some intelligent business leaders who anticipated the trade frictions between China and the United States, basically moving a part of their production from China to Vietnam or Singapore, for example, beginning with 2019-2020. Anyways, continuing with this list, we see that furniture and parts thereof is also here, with an overall export value around $8.3 billion and an year-on-year change of some $1.5 billion. Then we see seats, whether or not convertible into beds. Floor coverings are also in this list. So heading 3918, who saw an year-on-year change of $650 million, while towards the end of the list we have luminaries and lightning fittings. So heading 9405, footwear with outer soles and uppers of rubber or plastics is on the 19th spot, who saw an year-on-year positive change of some $261 million, while new pneumatic tires end this top 20 list with an overall export value of $1.5 billion, translating into an year-on-year absolute positive change of $248 million. So guys, what insights can we extract from this data? Well, the first one relates to two important export clusters that show up in this brief analysis, and I'm talking here about the ones concerning chapters 85 and 84. The first one important in both the width of the subchapters it covers, while the second, even though it covers just two subheadings in this top 20 list, in terms of cumulative exports, is almost $3 billion higher. So in what concerns both mechanical and electrical appliances, Vietnam, let's say, managed to capture a part of China's exports, even though if we look at the entire supply chain, the control is still done by the Chinese companies in the majority of cases. Another insight would refer to the clusters covering furniture and footwear, both with three subheadings and impressive export values, with the luminaries subheading showing an impressive compound annual growth rate around 26.5%. Otherwise, really good figures in what concerns both the compound annual growth rates and the overall exports. And if we look carefully, except for 4 or 5 subheadings with one-digit compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years, the rest show double-figure growth, which is pretty impressive. And for the medium term, well, it remains to be seen how much Vietnam can take all these Chinese foreign direct investments. Moving now, guys, to Vietnam's top 20 performers relative to the absolute negative changes. On the first place, we see the heading covering smartphones, who saw nearly negative change of some $4.5 billion. Electronic integrated circuits followed with some $313 million negative change, while video game consoles and machines, so heading 9504, ends the podium with a negative change of almost $227 million. And then the list goes on with, I don't know, polyacetals, for example, who had a negative change of $46 million. Bicycles and other cycles is also on this list, so heading 8712, who saw an yearly contraction of $32 million, while towards the end of the list we see household or laundry type washing machines. Parts used with flat panel display modules is on the 19th spot with a change of $22.3 million, while cement ends the top 20 list with a change of $20.2 million, but a much more impressive overall export value around $337 million. And again, guys, following the example from the previous sheet, in terms of insights, I can highlight two main clusters, one having 5 subheadings, while the others have each 3 subheadings. And on the one hand, I'm talking here about chapter 85, by far the most affected in this top 20 list, even though in terms of overall exports it's almost at $17 billion. While on the other hand, I'm talking about chapters 84 and 73. But if we zoom out from the yearly change and focus on the compound annual growth rate column, and if we look closer from these 20 subheadings, only 2 show negative changes, while others are still showing positive figures, even though it could happen that in the next 3 to 5 years we could see others on the red, like, I don't know, motorcycles or smartphones. Otherwise, I don't see any worrying things concerning these 20 headings. And guys, with this sheet being covered as well, I will now move to the last one, in which I will cover Vietnam's top 20 headings that had the smallest variability for this 2020-2024 timeframe. And on the first spot, we see articles of yarn, so heading 5609, who has a coefficient of variation of 0.057 and an export value of some $20 million for 2024. Made up clothing accessories is next with a coefficient of variation of 0.066, while boards, panels, consoles, and the like ends the podium with a coefficient of variation of 0.007 and some $426 million overall exports. And then the list goes on with, I don't know, women's or girls' overcoats. Imitation jewelry is next with a coefficient of variation of 0.083. Orthopedic appliances is also here, so heading 9021 with a coefficient of variation of 0.096. and some $480 million worth of exports, while towards the end of this top 20 list, we see auxiliary machinery with a coefficient of variation of 0.113. Women's or girls' suits is on the 19th spot with a coefficient of variation of 0.114 and some $1.9 billion overall exports for 2024, which is by far the largest exported value in this top 20 list. While builders wear of plastics, not elsewhere specified, and this top 20 list with a coefficient of variation of 0.119 and some $239 million worth of exports. So we see that this list is quite diversified, even though in terms of exports we really don't see impressive figures. But anyways, this is not about the overall export value, but about variability, which should show us a couple of sectors where Vietnam has a competitive advantage, at least in what concerns its exports towards the United States. And even though we're talking about values and not volumes, I still believe that this proxy is useful. And basically, we see an important cluster concerning chapter 62 here, so articles of apparel, who has 3 subheadings in this top 20 list. And then we see 3 smaller clusters composed of chapter 99 and 39, all with 2 subheadings in this list, while the rest of the chapters have only 1 heading and much smaller export values, except maybe for chapter 85, who has some $426 million. Now, in what concerns the compound annual growth rates for the last 5 years, we see that except for 5 headings who have a negative change, the rest are positive, with nothing worrying to expect, if you ask me. Of course, if the Trump 2.0 administration won't shake up things and threat Vietnam as well, when it will find out that a big chunk of Vietnam's exports have a Chinese-controlled company downstream the supply chain. But this is between you and me, guys. And of course, it will remain to be seen if Vietnam will be at the crosshairs between the trade war between China and the United States. So, guys, with these uncertain times ahead of us, my job here for today is done. I hope you've liked it. Thank me by commenting and hitting those small vanity buttons. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.